Hi, I'm Erin Sarofsky.
And I'm Austin Shaw.
This is Between the Keyframes. This week's episode is called The Interrogation because we felt like it would be fun to have a student about to transition into the real world interrogate us.
That's right. That's right.
So, Austin, would you like to introduce Michelle and tell us a little bit about
Sure.
what's
I've
going
invited one of my students, Michelle McDonald, to come, and I've told her she can ask us anything related to the field of motion design. Michelle, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name's Michelle. I am a senior at Western Washington University studying design, and I'm one of Austin Shaw's students. And I'm happy to be here.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for being here. Okay, well, do we want to jump in with question one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have individual question. Well, I have one individual question for each of you, so you can be kind of put in the hot seat a little bit, and then I have some for the team questions. So, yes, maybe I'll start with one for the team, and then I'll do the individual ones. So this is a good opener. My first question is, what makes you proud and excited that you chose this profession?
Proud and excited. Well, for me, it was kind of the beginning of the field. I feel like I stumbled into it in its infancy, and we've kind of seen it kind of grow from everything from optical into the desktop kind of phase of it. And it's only going to get more and more interesting, and the applications are going to get more and more diverse. But it's kind of watching the birth of a star. Austin?
Yeah, no.
Top that.
I like that because it's true. I mean, when we got into it right around the same time, and it wasn't like we knew what it even really was. At least I didn't, right?
And you don't
it
go
was
to
just
school
kind of
for it. Yeah.
No, it was just exactly. That's the other thing. You didn't go study motion design. It was just there were and it just happened to be. And I think for Erin and I, our generation too, we're sort of on that tip of analog to digital, right? So we've got training and kind of
both.
Rooted in both, and even going back to rotary phones and having to turn television dials to actually change
getting home and listening to your messages,
listening to exactly a VCR, all of that stuff. It's an email being kind of a novel thing to just communicate with friends at other colleges once or twice in a whole semester, and then to have these tools that I was just doing my thing, and it was learning these digital tools gave me access to creative opportunities that I can combine kind of my studio art background with this new design education and these design tools. And I had no idea that at the same time the industry was really departing from a real traditional model of post-production, that it was just a part of post-production. And it was really expensive to do motion design back then. Pre-2000, right?
SGIs,
and pre-90s,
flames.
Really expensive rigs. And all of a sudden with, Mac computers and, After Effects, Adobe, we could
Flash,
experiment,
freehand, Quark Express.
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
No, all of the software that's over now, Adobe obviously, but we joke about freehand. Remember freehand, which was a variation on Illustrator, and Quark, which was a variation on InDesign.
Quark Express, right? Remember what was the one? Adobe Streamline. It was a program that all it did was convert rasters to vectors. So it was literally like Live Trace in Illustrator. Wow. It was a standalone program. And then someone at Adobe is like, why don't we just
we're gonna buy that
and just put it into Illustrator as a button, right? So that part is exciting and proud. Yeah, to have just kind of ridden along on this train and to be there kind of on the ground. I would say from the educational point of view, getting to kind of be there too, and to help at least this modern incarnation of teaching this discipline, getting to be somewhat on the ground with that, and getting to see the students do stuff in the world.
I mean, I think you even helped define what we call it. motion design. Like your book, like we were, as a industry, struggling with what to even call this. Is it motion graphics, which is holdover from broadcast? Is it, like, motion design seems like so easy to say right now, but we really struggled as an industry about the language of what to even call it.
Can I dig a little further for Erin on this question about just Sarofsky itself, and what makes you most proud of Sarofsky as a studio?
Most proud that we've lasted.
That we're still here.
We're still here. We have a pulse and we're thriving. It's been like a really, we just did an episode that's going to be our first episode that's called The History of Now. And we really talk about like how the industry has evolved and changed. It went from this like what I'll call a digital boom, motion design boom. And then it got quiet because like things just shifted tonally into more comedy, dry comedy. So you weren't seeing like crazy logo animations or design infused into live action. You were like, logo, boop. So yeah, I think like just the shift in trends like that we're here and we're doing work that we're proud of. So and all the relationships for me, like outside of like the art and craft of it all, from a business standpoint, it's that I'm still close with most of the people that were my clients, with almost all of them from the jump, and really took care of them, and they still call. So
this one will be for both of you too. What is the nicest thing that anyone has ever said to you?
The check is in the mail.
I got one. So we were doing, it was this thing when I was teaching at SCAD, we were doing this like creative, like, what do they call it? The collaboration, CLC, creative learning collaborations. That's it. And we were in this sort of roundup with like students, and they were doing this little exercise where everyone was talking about like, what's your ninja skill, right? And they were trying to get all the students to say like, what's that thing I do besides design that I'm good at? And one of the students said to me that I just said out loud, like without prompting, they were like, Shaw's ninja skill is mentorship. He's just a great mentor. And that was very touching. To see that that's how they saw me. That was pretty nice. So that popped into my head.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting because like that kind of reminds me, just like after speaking or doing some kind of. Even Shaw, you said to me that, like, the other day, I gave a talk in your class, and you said that somebody paid this, like, really amazing compliment after the fact. It's nice to hear that people appreciate kind of where you've been and what you've been through and your openness and willingness to share that. And I think that is a little bit of the genesis of this podcast, is so much of what Austin and I talk about just privately about the field and the educational kind of side of it and how things flow from one into the other. There seems to be like there is really no mentorship to go through that. And we still reflect on those times. And even though like the aspects of the transition has changed from a technology standpoint, from how you market yourself, it's still like kind of the same. You still got to stand out. You still got to refine your skills, and there's still like socially appropriate ways to kind of handle things. And so when we kind of thought like we'd do this, and we didn't know what to expect of it, if anything, but every once in a while, like I'll give a talk, or I'll put myself out there and I'll get like a nice note back from somebody, not asking for anything, not wanting anything, just saying, hey, that story is going to change the way I approach things. So it's nice,
Well, that's actually a really good tie to my next question, which is for you, Erin.
Okay.
Austin, I think you'd struggle with this one. But I'm curious as to what has been your experience working in like a predominantly male-filled field, and if that has like led to any obstacles for you, or if there was any like advice that you would want to give like your younger female self going into that.
Well, I think when I was a little younger, starting out my career, even though I was entirely surrounded by men, I didn't really think about it. I just focused on the work. I really did. And then when it, like, kind of, the light kind of from the lighthouse shined in my eyes and I realized what was going on, I, like, had a nice confrontational moment with my employers and was like, you need to do something about this. It's unacceptable. Like, being paid half of what my counterparts were making. And they were like, we could do a little something. And I was like, okay. You're never going to, like, evolve from that. Like, and so what I would say, I don't think I'd change anything because, like, I really like that I focused on the work. Like, I was there for the right reasons, and I wouldn't have wanted to be just focused when starting out my career on, like, the other aspects of it, like payment. Because, like, 20% more when you're making, like, $30,000 isn't going to, like, change your fucking life. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not. So I think I did an okay thing by focusing on my career. But what I tell women now is to know what's going on in the market, know how much you're worth. I think that people do talk more openly about what they're making in studios and with their peers, and, like, freelancers kind of talk with each other about their rates. And well, I don't necessarily want all my employees talking super openly about what they make, because I think that's a private negotiation. I assume that they do. And with that assumption, that means that, like, I will never kind of pay somebody outside of the range of what's appropriate for what they do. So if they're coming in and saying, like, I'm coming in, I'm a senior XYZ, this is what we pay an artist in that, or a producer or admin in that kind of range. And if it's not going to work for you, it's just not going to work. I'm not going to bend the rules for that person. Like, so I think that that's really, like, important. It's hard for employers to kind of live by that. I will say that that is hard, because when you need somebody and you're in a bind and looking for somebody, you'll kind of stretch a little bit because you're obviously making money because you got jobs flowing and you need extra hands. But by and large, I think that's, for me, like, the rule I stand by. So I think I don't know that I'd say anything, because also that discovery was a personal kind of hard moment. And even in owning the business, being up for director gigs, like, I know I've lost because I'm a woman sometimes. Like, you pitch to a group of guys, you hear some, like, inside scoop from your inside guy there, and they're like, yeah, it's not coming to you, they're just not comfortable yet. Like, okay, like, so what? I want to work with people that want to work with me because I'm brilliant. And because they see something special in the work and in the approach, and if they can't get past feeling uncomfortable with having, like, a female leader, like, that's not something I want to experience going into. And that experience is not going to be good for me. And I just don't have time in my life and space for those kind of things. Like, I want to work with people that want to work with me.
It sounds like there's not a lot of, like, discouragement in your voice when you talk about, like, you feel like you've, like, lost things just because you're a woman. Have you always, like, had that kind of, like, level-headed thinking of, like, well, I don't want to work with someone like that, I don't have time with that? Or has that come from, like, life lessons just being learned?
Well, I think actually you're hitting on, like, a really important question, and Austin will totally relate to this. You absolutely cannot win them all.
Yeah.
But owning a business, even before that, when I worked at Superfed and Digital Kitchen, you pitch on a certain number of jobs, you bid on a certain number of jobs, and you win a certain percentage of them. So the ones you win, you want to have a good time doing. And I've also learned that, like, if that really cool thing goes away, there will be another one behind it. So that is something that has come over time, and so you just see, And I think that loss is a natural part of, a business, but also, especially a designer. Like, you're pitching, even if your company wins the job, it's likely not going to be your solution because they put forth like 5 solutions. So you still lost as a designer, but yeah, you still get to make something that's cool, and your work informs the process of what they like and don't like and where they want to be. But the majority of stuff you pitch and put out there is going to be rejected. And then as you move forward through the process, even if you do win, you're going to post things, and then the client is going to say what to change. So there's this like natural like rejection. But while you're building something really beautiful. And so you have to kind of focus on the seeds of what's working and not what's being pushed aside. Even if it's great, even if it's great work that you're like, how could they not pick this? And there's a lot of that. You have to focus on what is working on how to make that better.
That's like trusting that flow of the process and just trusting that like, okay, there's going to be another gig. There's
always another gig. Yeah.
And just keep on looking. How can I be of service to this project? How can I make it better? How can I help?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
there was
go
on.
No, you go.
Oh, I was just going to say, this made me think of yesterday. I was doing an interview with Erin for this keynote for a conference, and somebody asked a question, and Erin gave an awesome answer. Somebody asked basically like, how do you deal with imposter syndrome? And Erin was just like, yeah, I don't have that. And I was just like,
and why did you assume I do?
Right.
If anything, I probably had the other, is what I said, which is that I felt this like sense that like my opinion was necessary, even though I was young and a total moron, and totally inexperienced. But I did address like, hey, you have to get used to talking when you feel uncomfortable. And if you are worried about people not liking your opinion, ask other people for their opinion, compliment other people, ask people about their process and how that informed that. And so that you get used to hearing your voice in the room.
You also said something like, it was like, if you have a seat at the table, you might as well talk. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah. Which I liked. At the table. You're there, right?
You're there. I don't know. It's like getting on Santa's lap and not asking for fucking anything.
How many times have we all been there? Yeah.
Well, we're both Jews, right?
Yeah, we're Jewish.
So. We don't know.
So you don't sit on Santa's lap?
A ton of shit. Yeah, never.
All right, so this one's for both of you. What is one thing about your job that you feel like you'll never get used to?
You want to go? Or should I go?
I'm letting it marinate.
Let it simmer.
Here's where I'm at. I have 2 jobs. I feel like I'm always like, I have 2 jobs. But I'm also a Gemini, so it works for me really well. Right? So I have my job as an educator, and then I have my job as a commercial artist. So which one should I answer?
Ooh, I mean, I want to say both.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. I still need to think about it for a second.
Okay, I'll answer. I have an answer right away. The thing I'll never get used to is the turnaround times.
Oh.
It's so fast. What people are asking for, like, especially with the level of fit and finish that we create, like, it's going faster and faster. And the tools have evolved to accommodate that, but, like, it's at the point where it doesn't even give you a night to sleep on something. It's like, crank it out. Get more hands on it so that at least somebody knocks it out of the park. It's hard. Hard to keep up with the pace. And I think students, that's one thing they don't realize coming into the industry is the pace is fast. So, and the amount of variations that you offer because the pace is fast is a lot. So it's a little bit like, okay, this one, and then you're like, okay, so now we're going on here. This one. Okay, which one? And so that it's more just selecting as opposed to like, oh, let's talk about what you posted. This one's working for this video. It's more,
Iteration. Yeah, iteration is a big part of it. I mean, and it's interesting, I think, from an educational perspective too. It's an effective way to generate a lot of ideas, to generate work, to actually, and also get out of like a lot of the futzing around and noodle. And it's just like, cool, this is looking interesting. Give me another 5 more examples or 10 more examples in that. I think I came up with an answer, and I think it works for both.
Awesome.
I think one of the things I'll never get used to, and I'm kind of glad that I won't get used to, is this sort of surprise that you can keep learning. As both an educator and as a commercial artist. Just when I think I'm like, okay, I got this thing, I understand it, or I've got this thing figured out, it's like, oh wow, there's a whole nother way to look at this, right? And whether for commercial art, there's periods now, it's going on 20 years doing this, where I've hit some plateaus for a while, or I just think this is the way it's going to be in this context. And then something will happen, or I'll do something. And I've talked about this, like passion projects, I think are a great way for that, where all of a sudden I feel reinvented in the way that I see the work and the way I'm making the work. I mean, and it's still a continuation of everything that came before, but it feels like my eyes, I'm seeing it a little fresher. And it's the same thing with teaching, where I think I've kind of like, okay, this is the way that I do this thing. And then working with students, I get to keep learning. And, but it's one of those things I don't think I'll get used to, because maybe it's me, maybe it's the human mind, but like, okay, this is how things are now. And then I'm like, oh, maybe it's not just that, or I see it differently. Yeah.
That's a good answer.
That's a good question. These are very good questions.
Thank you. Okay, this one's for Austin. So we all talk behind your back about just how passionate you are and like motivated, and your stamina is just incredible. You go like all day. And so I'm curious about what like drives that passion that you have like for students, and it also seems to come out in your design as well. So like students and design in general, what like drives that passion for you?
Well, first, I'm glad that y'all aren't talking about how I'm a douchebag behind my back.
We talk about that too, but that like, wasn't a very good question to ask. Yeah,
hate that guy. So yeah, the passion. I mean, and this is interesting. This is fun because it's like I agree that I'm pretty driven, and I do a lot, on across things. And I will say this: I bowed down to Erin, because I look at Erin and she's like, I'm just hustling to keep up. Like Erin is like, yeah, she's next level on stamina and just the amount of executive functions and switching sets that I'm impressed. But I'm also like, I do a lot. And people often, between teaching and freelance and my own work and writing and, not let alone family and, and playing my Nintendo Switch, there's some important,
high priority.
But you know what? It's part of that's part of my decompressing, that's like, I'm total, like, I don't feel bad about it when I go and play, right? Cause I need that, right? I don't feel, I have a pretty active meditation practice I've done for a lot of years now that helps me kind of keeps my mind and body in sync with each other. That's part of it. But it's interesting. I mean, I think, we can get into like the like what's the drive? Some of it is passion. I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, is it fear? Is it fear of stopping? You know what I mean? Like what happens when you stop doing these things all the time? And I have had like times in my life where I've just, had to stop doing things and just had to sort of pause and reflect and kind of, and recenter myself and recenter my priorities. And there's that, I don't know, it's a little bit of a cliche, but that idea of like, we are human beings, not human doings, and I can get lost in the doing. But it's, I'm very grateful just because I get to do a lot of the things I'm really passionate about, like for my life. Right? For like my vocations, plural. Right? And like, so I'm really grateful for that.
Actually, I want to kind of hear that same answer with you, Erin. Like what drives because he mentioned that you also have the same amount of stamina. So like what drives that passion for you, or whatever it is that drives you?
I like doing things and getting things done and finishing things and making things, and I just like building stuff, so I have like hobbies, but then hobbies turn into like passions that get woven into what I make and do. So like I own a motion design. Well, I own a production company. We do ton of motion design, but I was out shooting for the last 2 days. So there's also live action as a component of that. And just, I don't know. I feel like I'm always just making stuff or making new stuff to make. I'm just like a builder, and kind of not like an inventor, but like, I don't know. I feel like if I see something missing or something I want to explore, I dive into it, and I treat it like it's a job, even though there's no real anything pushing me to finish it or fully explore it. Like, I treat it like somebody like is looking over, like I have that list and I have to crank it out. So I feel like that is driving me. I have, definitely been thinking a little bit more about life the way Austin is, and I think for me that's about how to engineer some freedom into the stuff I like doing and my time, but that freedom doesn't necessarily mean I'm gonna like go chill on a beach somewhere. That's just not me. That freedom means like what? Like what would I even want to do? I really do enjoy doing the work and empowering other people to do the work and helping clients and friends and all of this community evolve. And I'm seeing ways to evolve my own career, so I'm doing the work for that. So is it evolving in the context of my studio? Yes. It is evolving outside of the context of my studio? Yes. But you have to do the work, and I think that's something that like both Austin and I really know is like you don't get there by just like jumping. You have to do the work. If you want to be a writer, you got to write. If you want to be an artist, you got to do art. If you want to explore a specific medium, you got to buy it and start experimenting with it. Like you don't all of a sudden just become an expert, influencer, this, that, because you bought like podcasting equipment. Like you have to do the work. Like it's just, so I like doing the work and and then once I get there, I'm not like, whoa, I'm there. I'm like, what more work can be done?
Right,
so I don't know.
I would, along those lines, I think maybe we share a similar thing. Like it's something I have noticed in my life. Like I charge up a mountain and it's just, I'm going up the mountain, I'm going up the mountain, I'm going. And then when I finally ascend to the top, instead of like taking that minute to pause and enjoy it, it's like I'm charging down the mountain.
Down the next mountain.
You know what I mean? And to be conscious to actually
take
pause,
a minute,
breathe, take a minute, like enjoy the view, feel it, then charge down the mountain. Because that's like the charge. Yeah, if anything, it's probably trying to build in more downtime. Because it's like, it's not like I need to work on my hustle. It's like I need to work on my chill.
This episode is getting really long here, so we're going to take a pause and come back next week to finish us off with Michelle and her interrogation of us.
That's right. We're going to talk about what students should be asking potential employers, and Erin and I are going to reveal some of our greatest weaknesses.
Our kryptonite. Design crypto. Okay.